So the Nanatsu no Taizai movie Prisoners of the Sky got put on Netflix earlier this year, and I was highly anticipating this movie ever since it first got announced. And when they revealed the 6 Knights of Black were going to be antagonists for this movie, that really sold me on it. It was pretty awesome because these guys exist in the canon. They were mentioned, I think, once in the entire series, said to be about as strong as the commandments, which may not sound like much nowadays, and that's because it's not. Mainly when you take in consideration the point in the series this would take place and how strong all the sins are at this point. Plus all the matchups going down being in the sins' favor. And it's not a big deal that they were completely underwhelming.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
I'm just going to try to give my thoughts on the movie overall, but yeah, real quick, a bit more on Please Don't Hate Me, the canon for the person who cares. Yeah! Alright, so the base story for this movie is written by Nakaba, and the best thing I can compare this to in that aspect is One Piece Strong World. Both were released with special manga for the movie that take place before the events of the film, and both featuring canon characters for the first time. And the events of both these movies don't really fit seamlessly in the anime or manga, but we basically know where they would lie in the canon timeline. Prison of the Sky takes place sometime after the battle for Leones, once King and Deanne return to Leones, which will most likely happen sometime in season 3. But with that said, overall the movie is pretty good for what it is. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, which is a pretty good length for an animated movie like this. I don't know why they drew inspiration from Castle in the Sky and then did the plot from the fucking Parent Trap for a series where character lookalikes and reincarnation are already a huge thing, so you know, just whatever. The thing is, the storytelling here doesn't really have that eccentric Nakaba touch that's just very unpredictable. I mean, the man's motto is no chapter that sucks, but really a lot of the non-action scenes here were just kinda boring. Now when a shonen battle series like this gets a movie, it really doesn't need a great plot to hold up, but I will say they could have filled that time space in a much better way. With that being said, I really just feel like the content around the fights is just fluff, because you want to watch this for the sins versus the 6 Knights of Black. And even though I feel like they could have done better with the 6 Knights of Black, they all had to get screen time, as did the sins, whose screen time is the most important. I'd like to say Bond has a pretty great role in this movie, and honestly, I thought he had better scenes than Escanor and King. Comparing Bond scenes to the other sins, it definitely seems like they were trying to push Bond a little bit in this movie, which is pretty cool. I felt like they were even trying to hint at him holding back against Bellion, which makes sense. Not that I really think he could beat Bellion, but Bellion, who was my favorite part of the movie overall, was just soft as hell. A bit weaker than I thought he'd be, honestly. Originally, I felt like Meliodas shouldn't have overpowered Bellion so easily, but really this is post-death Meliodas, who we know is just ridiculously strong. I think his base power level is like 60,000. So for Bellion to actually give Meliodas a run for his money while Meliodas has the demon mark out, that'd be like him being on the level of Estarossa and Zeldris, which they clearly did not want to make a thing in this movie. In the manga special for Prisoner of the Sky and in the movie, he says that he surpassed the 10 Commandments. But really, I just think that's a callback to Gil Thunder.
I am now more powerful than any of the 7 deadly sins.
I don't know if I've thought about it too much at this point, but the power scaling and everything in this movie is really consistent with what it'd be at the point of the series this would take place, which, like I said, would be shortly after the Battle of Leonis. They get a short break in the manga before they target Camelot and Zeldris, so that's pretty cool. But other than the way they handled the 6 Knights of Black, my main gripe with this movie is the Celestials.
The fuck you say to me, you little shit? Dude, don't fucking that little piece of shit. Shut up when I'm talking to you. You shut your mouth.
And like I said, the way they filled the time space around the action, there just really wasn't enough time to execute the story they were going for. Which is a big deal. It's just we're used to better stories coming from Nanatsu no Taizai. It's just a shame because there was potential there. With the Celestials being the descendants of the goddess clan and what they could have actually done with that, but they came out really flat and very predictable and didn't really bring anything to the story other than the role of the people who need to be saved. They act like a big part of the movie is going to be the switching of identities with Meliodas and Salad, but it didn't really go anywhere.
You're not an intellectual, you're a fake and a fraud. Come on over here.
The movie had very little to do with them actually resembling each other. It was just a plot device and used to fill time, and honestly, the movie would have been better without a lot of that stuff. Like, we've already been introduced to multiple lookalikes for Elizabeth in the actual series.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Even if they're trying to say she's a descendant of Goddess Elizabeth, it still doesn't do anything, even from a fan standpoint, if they're not going to confirm it. Like, some things are good, left up to the imagination, and some just aren't. The Meliodas and Elizabeth lookalikes aren't helping the movie. You already get that shit in the real series with Elizabeth, so really, what's the need of doing it here? Why give us original characters that could surprise or grow on us when you can give us the same design and dynamic that we're already used to, I guess? What I feel like really gives these movies from anime series a chance is when they can expand on actual concepts from the series to play out an interesting scenario for fans, which I want to give this movie bonus points for doing, with how they at least attempted to portray the Celestials, the descendants of the goddess clan. Like I said, there's tons of potential there, especially with how much the druids, the worshippers of the goddess clan in the series, got glossed over when they could have been developed more. But I really can't give much credit because the Celestials are played in a very generic and uninteresting way. And I usually hate to use the word generic. Look up shonen from this decade on Mao reviews, and every time they use the words typical, generic, or run-of-the-mill, take a shot, you'll die in like 20 minutes. But seriously, these dudes are fucking store brand level shit. I don't want to seem like I'm being too harsh because I really do like this movie. It's got some incredible looking scenes and delivers where it truly counts, because I've seen series that I love get movies that are actually really boring. It's just, while I feel like we could get another Nanatsu no Taizai movie, this could easily be the only one we do get. So I wanted it to have a lasting impact for the anime. I can think of a few shonen battle anime that have really good first films, even though the ones that follow are shit. But at least they sort of play to the strengths of the series. This movie does that with the action. You can watch multiple episodes of the 7 Deadly Sins anime in a row, and it won't hit nearly as many dry parts as this movie has. The setting itself is amazing, along with the art, but you can't funnel it through a plot that moves so painfully slow in the beginning and gives you so little of everything by the end. You start to wonder, what was the purpose of the Celestials anyway? Because if you take them out the movie, you have the good parts. And again, last time, I'll say this, I promise, you can place a latte, I think, in Salad with literally any original character, and the movie is almost better. Having them identical to Elizabeth and Meliodas, or male, could be either, who cares? It does nothing for the canon, for the fans, for the character, anything I can think of. It's just lazy. I feel like the scene where Meliodas had the winged sword lodged in him was kind of dumb, considering like that's their best weapon. Like, if they were to leave the sword in Meliodas, how the hell would they kill Bellion? I felt like that part in the movie was just kind of silly, to be honest, because it was just a no-brainer situation. They kind of have to have the winged sword, don't they? But, you know, that aside, I got a good bit of enjoyment out of this movie. Yeah, I'm glad we got to see the 6 Black Knights finally. Bellion is now probably one of my favorite characters shown in the anime. I can't say he was a great antagonist, because he didn't present much of a challenge at all. Not even a difficult choice for our protag. The movie didn't really have that. It was just for the fights. Most of this video I wrote after the first time I watched it, and I enjoyed it more the second time, for sure. And it's got an action scene or two that rivals some of the best ones in the series from the first and second season. So yeah, it has its flaws, but it was a pretty epic movie. You really can't top that last full counter of the movie that had all their power behind it. That's very appropriate for a 7 Deadly Sins movie. Where we get to see all 7 of the sins in one place. I mean, that doesn't even really happen in the series. It hasn't happened in the anime to this day. So in that regard, it is pretty cool to see. Let me know what you guys thought about the movie and the 6 Knights of Black. Do you guys want to see more 7 Deadly Sins content? Put any thoughts you have in the comment section below. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. It's been really real. I'll praise the sun. I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.
Find me all on my own and you got involved like you wanna crash me.